Go around the badger.
Hey everybody, it is the Angry Honey Badger here, and it is time again for a new build video. This time we're going to be taking a look at Maokai. Now Maokai recently has seen a resurgence in play because of the changes to him that have buffed him back up a bit, which is helpful because they nerfed him pretty hard because he was a constant pick during Season 5, but he's been buffed back up, and we're going to be seeing him again for a little while, at least until they nerf him, or until the meta shifts away from tankier top laners. So today we're going to take a look at him. We'll go over, of course, his runes and masteries in just a second, followed by the items you want to build on him, and his abilities, what they do, and some insight on those. Pros and cons, and just general tips and tricks, or whatever you may want to call them. Anyways, to kick things off though, let's take a look at the runes and the masteries. I'll bring those up on the screen right now. Go ahead and look at these or jot them down. Go over to League and put them in if you want to do that too. But this is what I've been taking, at least for this game, and for the most part what I like to take on him. Alright, let's get rid of those. Now, let's go over his abilities because we need to know what they do and how those work and all that fun stuff. So, let's start with his passive, which is called Sap Magic. Each time a champion near Maokai casts a spell, he gains a charge of this. When he gets 5 charges, his next melee attack drains energy from his target, which heals him for a percentage of his maximum health. This upgrades every 6 levels, so it'll scale from 5, 6, and 7%. Really impactful for staying in lane, really impactful for living through long fights, as everyone constantly, usually at least, casts spells. Make sure, though, when you're about to go down, which will happen in a second, make sure you are at least auto-attacking to get this to proc, because you can live through some crazy things. That's actually one big just tip right there for anybody looking to play Maokai. Make sure you auto-attack people, because you will get a lot back from your passive. So make sure you auto-attack. Even if you're having a rough lane phase, see if your passive is back up. If it's not, maybe spam one ability, walk up and hit a minion. You'll get a big chunk of your life back, or a potential to have a big chunk of your life back. And that is what will happen. I will do that in just a second against this Nidalee to probably live for just a second long enough and just do barely enough damage to get a kill. So here it's going to happen. She's going to come back. If you haven't noticed, Nidalee's been kind of camping. She's coming back now. He's going to speed up to me and give me the damage. And I'm going to go back root, get the auto attack to get the 100 extra health points. And she takes just enough damage to die to the turret. So it's very impactful. So make sure you land that. At rank 1, though, let's talk about ranking order now for our abilities. At rank 1, some people like to put points into Sapling Toss. It's good for checking brush and all types of stuff. You can do that. I did not do that, though. I put a point into Arcane Smash. You're going to smash the ground. You're going to be dealing damage to enemies, magic damage that is. You will hit them and slow them for 1.5 seconds. If they are close enough, though, they will be briefly knocked up. So that's what I like, and we max this out first as well. Then at rank 2, typically then we'll go for Sapling Toss. Maybe Twisted Advance if we're going to be getting a very early gank, but we'll pretty much do a Sapling Toss. It's good to pick up minions this way. Also, will slow them. It'll hit the ground, deal some damage then. Then it will burst after, it has a second it sits on the ground. It has a delay. Then it will go find target, and it will chase for up to 2.5 seconds and deal some more damage. Any enemies that are caught by that as he bursts, it will slow them for a second, so you have a little more CC there. At rank 3, we maxed that last, by the way, Sapling Toss. Rank 3, Twisted Advance. We're going to max this out second. You're going to go underground and then pop up and grab them, which means you will quickly move to them, and you will root them in place and deal some good damage. And the more points you put into your Twisted Advance, the longer the duration of that root will be. So make sure you know that that's what it does, and that's why we max it out second. And then we have our ultimate, which is probably the most impactful teamfighty thing he has. Granted, all of his crowd control is fantastic, but his vengeful maelstrom is what really puts the power in Maokai. This is going to shield all allies by drawing power from hostile spells and attacks, reducing non-tower damage done to allied champions in the area by 20%. You can prolong the effect for 10 seconds as long as he has mana to spend on it because it has an upkeep per second. We're going to get a little fight with Renekton. I'll keep talking about Vengeful Maelstrom, though. When the effect ends, though, Maokai unleashes the absorbed energy, and he will deal damage to them. The damage to enemies within the area, at least. Maximum bonus damages will reach a certain amount. But basically, you're going to protect everybody inside of it. And this is a very impactful, like if you can protect 20% of all damage being dealt to your team, that's insane. Like your damage absorption is huge. So it's always important to make sure that you are rocking that in team fights and that, you know, you pop it to get kills, which I do there actually to pop it, although I activated it a little late, but nobody was going to die, so there's no big issue there, but that's what's up. So, but those are your abilities. They're important to know, because if you don't know your abilities, you don't really know what they do. Let's talk about the build as it goes. This is old school. Well, let's talk about how his build's progressed over the last full season. So when Righteous Glory was introduced to the game, that was pretty much the go-to item on Maokai. Made his initiations really good, but they nerfed Righteous Glory pretty heavily. It's not bad, it's just, it got nerfed. I personally like the Rod of Ages build on Maokai because the first thing it gets him is the health, which he does need. Because you need health. It's a very important stat on somebody who's going to be a tanky frontliner. Even before armor and all that stuff, which those are good to get a little bit, but before you just rush straight out armor items, you need some health behind it to get it to be more effective. So Rod of Ages is what I like. It makes your laning better too, and it makes CSing easier by arcane smashing the ground and throwing saplings to pick up CS. Very important to have those things. It's really, really helpful. As you can see, with my ult up and that little bit of damage, like Renekton can't touch me at the current moment. Like I just destroyed him in that little skirmish. So you just have to look out for getting ganked and stuff, which I will in a second because I'm pretty overextended to be honest. But I'm just trying to be a nuisance while the rest of my team is honestly getting work done across the map. Anyways, though, Rod of Ages is what I like to get. You could do Righteous Glory, though, if you wanted to, and make sure you do get any defenses you may need early, though, as I was able to pick up my Ninja Tabi pretty quick because that's what I needed. Because that's what I needed it. I needed it. We got to get it. So I went with that. And those were the boots I went with. Obviously, you could go with those or Merc treads, but I like Ninja a little bit better on Maokai because you know you're going to be up front and you will be taking a lot of standard attacks, meaning you're going to take a lot of, you know, that damage. And since those help reduce all incoming standard attacks, that is a very impactful item, actually. But don't get me wrong. Tenacity on Merc treads and the magic resist can be helpful depending on the team compositions you are up against and what you may need. So always remember that Merc treads are an option. Now, as for the next item after the Rod of Ages, you really have what I think are two choices. Most of the time, if you really will be... Okay, let me put it this way. Every single time you play a game, you should almost never stick to exactly the same identical build every single time. That's not how the game works. You have to adapt to the situation and what is happening and who you're against and the kind of damage coming in. If you had just one build for every champion, that'd be super stagnant and boring, and there'd be no reason for choice. So, against this team, I need some magic resist because they do have some magic damage dealers that I need to pay attention to, so we are building a Spirit Visage right now. We are also building a little bit of armor at the same time, but luckily we already have some armor with our boots into our next item. So we'll go over both of those as we get them closer, but the Spirit Visage is the next one that we started building towards first with that Spectre's Cowl. I'm trying to make sure I stay in front of those shots to tank them up from that Jhin. And that will be super helpful for us. But yes, that's what we're building next, the Spirit Visage. Good cooldown reduction. It gives us actually more health back on our passive because of the increased healing passive on the Spirit Visage. Health and magic resist. All really, really good things on the Maokai. I'm so glad they made that a skin, by the way. Because I used to call him Maokai. I think a lot of people called him Maokai for a long time. Because it's Maokai. Meow. We finished off the Spirit Visage and we're starting to build towards our next item. You can actually build our next item into multiple choices. It looks like the beginning of a Frozen Heart, but in fact it is the beginning of an Iceborn Gauntlet. They both build very similarly. The reason why I like the Iceborn Gauntlet is the slow field after you are able to root on top of someone. It makes it very impactful to get that slow. It makes landing your next Arcane Smash even easier and your next Sapling Toss. It's a good way to just chain together all of your crowd control in an easy, simple, and effective manner. And it also will give Maokai just a little bit more bonus damage. And I'm already impactful with my damage in this game, to be honest. Not like outrageously impactful, but like it's significant. You saw the brawling with Renekton. I dealt damage to him. Here I jump in. Here I absorb a lot of damage in a team fight that doesn't really go anywhere, but it's nice to be able to deal damage while I'm living that long, absorbing all of that damage. So that is what the Iceborn Gauntlet will help me with. The next item after the Iceborn Gauntlet I would typically go for, and sometimes I would go for, depending on the enemy team comp. Let's say the enemy team would have been a lot more physical damage dealers. Let's say that's a full AD team. They got a Zed mid, they got a Kha'Zix in the jungle, they have, let's just say, a Darius top, and they have an ADC in the bot lane with like a Morgana. If they had a team with that much physical damage, instead of going for a Spirit Visage, probably at all, to be honest, because you wouldn't really need it. You could maybe pick it up later, because you'll be taking little bits of magic damage, especially from the Morgana. But what I would have maybe built early, back a few months ago, people would have been building Dead Man's Plate potentially first. But I don't really care for the Dead Man's Plate. It still is good to help him with initiations, because it does give him that speed up time that he does like and need, and it does add a little bit more damage too, of course. But what I would actually do is I would be building something a bit different, and that would be the Sunfire Cape. And the Sunfire Cape isn't necessarily like super overpowered now, but it's been buffed up while Dead Man's Plate has been nerfed down, and that's the reason why I like the Sunfire Cape. And it's not really oddball by any means, but everybody would have been building Dead Man's Plate previously. But now that Sunfire is just better, it's just the way to go in my opinion. Also gives you all that passive damage, and since Maokai lives so long, that's the reason to keep building, damage. You live so long, you might as well dish out all of that damage per second with a Sunfire Cape. So that is the next item I would typically go to. When you want to finish out the build with an item, you honestly could pick up a ZZ Rot pretty late if you really, really wanted to. It will give you more armor and magic resist, and it'll give your team a little bit pushing power in the side lanes. Another item you could go for is actually a Banner of Command. Can be good, gives you some more damage and some more magic resist. Very nice. Locket if nobody on your team's picked up a Locket. And then the other good one is Thornmail if they are, in fact, heavy AD team. Maybe they have multiple ADCs. They have the Graves jungle or Graves top, and they have maybe a Lucian in the bot lane. They have multiple AD threats that can be, good to have a Thornmail against. That's something that you definitely would want to pick up. So that can be a final item. So obviously there's a couple other choices too. Randuin's would be a good one too if you didn't want to necessarily go with Thornmail, but you wanted more health and armor. There's a lot of good tank items, honestly, for Maokai right now. It's pretty open, which is a nice thing. But for the most part, my core, these 3 items, you'll typically need at least these 3, because you'll need a good mixture of armor and magic resist. And then the Rod really just gives him a really good mana pool to pull from for his ultimates, along with the health and the extra damage, which is just enough to be able to brawl people pretty effectively. And it, helps with your scaling, of course, too, which can always be a positive thing. So that is pretty much the build for Maokai. It's pretty solid. He's pretty good right now. A little bit of practice on him can go a pretty long way. I will say another thing too is just make sure you stay coordinated with your team. You are the front line. Make sure you are the front line for your team. You're initiating on the correct targets. And things should go quite well, to be honest. But that's Build and Guide. Everything's in the description. And I'll see all of you in the next build video.